Robert, are y'all ready at City Hall?
We're ready here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:03 p.m. It is Tuesday, December 1st, and I'm going to call this regularly scheduled City Council meeting to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Robert, can you start that off for us?
Definitely can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America.
To the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God,
with
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the City Secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell.
Here.
Coach.
Here.
Ellison.
Present.
Kale. Here. Rizzo.
Present.
Bradshaw.
Present.
Tobias.
Here.
All right, 7 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, approval of the minutes.
Mayor, motion to approve both sets of minutes as written.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Tobias that we approve the minutes for November 17th, special and regular. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, citizen comments period. At this time, we ask anyone in the audience or who is registered online who wishes to speak to please do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, that you direct those comments to the mayor and council, and that you fill out a citizen comments form or submit the necessary responses online. I have 2 who I was notified who register an opinion, and I will read those out. I do not have anyone else that I've seen who's registered to speak. Is there anyone else online who has called in to speak? Samantha, Jennifer?
No, there's no one. There is Tracy Scheel here in the audience.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak? Okay, the first comment that I received written was from Sharon Smith, wishing to register an opinion but not testify on agenda item number 20. She is registering an opinion in favor. And then also Miss Sarah Files, who is wishing not to speak but to register an opinion on agenda item number 16, and she is registering an opinion in favor. And with that, if there's no one else who wishes to speak, I will go ahead and close Mayor. Citizen comments period.
Mayor.
Scott, go ahead.
We do have one person
here.
Oh,
Councilmember Scheel. Sorry, Tracy. Our screen is going off and on virtually here, so I'm not able to see what's happening there.
I'll accept your apology for that.
All right, Councilmember Scheel. Tracy.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, my name is Tracy Scheel, and I am a resident of Kyle for the record. I am here to speak on item number 7 of all the boards and committees that I was on. The Alliance Regional Water Authority Board, to me, was the most important. This board is going to be affecting the residents of our city for years to come. And when I say years to come, I'm talking about hopefully for the next 50 years at least, to provide water, the most important thing that every human being needs. And to have good drinking potable water is just extremely important for the residents of our city. This board meets every 4th Wednesday of the month. There are some times where it does have to be adjusted, but that's the schedule as it stands now. It lasts from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. at least. And that is just sitting looking at presentations, hearing the vendors and such. There is a lot of time taken ahead of time to prepare yourself for that meeting. There are contracts to read through. There are understanding of different vendors and what they're trying to promote and everything. So it is a time-consuming board, but again, it is also very just rewarding to be on. The other thing about this board, and that is keeping the cost of it down. This is going to be 85 miles of pipeline for water being risen from the Carrizo Aquifer, which is in Caldwell County, about southeast of Lockhart, brought to the city of Kyle, the city of San Marcos, and the city of Buda. So it does not just affect us, it affects everybody in our area. So, and then also a member and a partner is County Line, which also affects our residents. So I just, the other part of that is keeping the cost down, because of course our residents are going to have to shoulder that cost. And you'll see that in each annual budget when we have to put a large payment to that cost. So I just wanted to express how important this board is. And if you are thinking that is something you want to do, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that of what it does consume. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, with no further commenters, I'm going to go and close citizen comments period. It is now closed. Next up, presentation regarding Kinder Morgan settlement. I'm not sure if Mr. Four is in the audience or if he is online, but I believe we've got some good news that we just received a check wire in the mail and wanted to give an opportunity for him to bring that up and discuss. Scott, is Alan there?
Mayor, he is here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Alan Four, Vice President with Kinder Morgan. And as the mayor indicated, we're happy to report today that the first installment of our agreement that we have with the city to pay $2.7 million was received by the city. I believe that's been confirmed, that
Yes,
actually was received today. And we will have another similar payment according to the terms of our agreement that will be due and payable within 1 year, and we'll work with the city on when a good time for that is to pay. A brief report on the project itself. We are complete with the project from a construction perspective, and there is natural gas flowing in the line. You recall it's been approximately 2 years, over 2 years since we first announced our project, and it was a lengthy process involving across the project 420 mile project route, around 1,000 landowners. So an extensive process to construct the pipeline, and in particular to the city. We have completed construction activity. I do want to note that when you put pipelines into service, there are several stages to that. You begin to put natural gas into the system, and we're doing that now. We won't formally be in service until early next year. And when I say the construction process is complete, there will still be restoration activities ongoing. So I checked today with our teams, and we expect to be doing some additional restoration work next week, and we'll continue with that until it's finished. And what that means is that when we reached agreement with each individual landowner, part of the agreement were specifics to that individual property. And we had about, as you recall, about 5 miles of property in Kyle, and around 20, or approximately 20 landowners. And that each landowner agreement is specific to that property. So that may involve, depending on the property, a particular type of reseeding of the right-of-way, the 50-foot permanent right-of-way. It may involve putting up a fence. It may involve restoring various items. So those will be ongoing, and some are weather sensitive and seasonal sensitive, so we'll be following through on that. And I think another interesting and important point to make on this system is we've said from the outset that this project was designed to serve a variety of consumers and businesses. And what we're pleased to find is that some of that interest is in Hays County. And as the project now is or close to being in service, and utilities and others know that natural gas is accessible from this system, there's no question that Hays County and Kyle are high growth areas for businesses and for manufacturing industry and population. And one of the long-term values of this project will be access to natural gas in it. So we currently have delivery points along the route, including in Caldwell County, but we have received multiple inquiries, our business development commercial teams, from the Hays County area and other hill country areas, including Gillespie County and Blanco County, and we'll be following up on those. And we look forward to providing natural gas to communities that we serve along the route. So I want to thank the City of Kyle for, and particularly Mayor Mitchell, for efforts on behalf of the city. This was in many ways an unprecedented agreement for us. We hadn't entered into an agreement like this with the city, and it was, as you all recall as council members that were here at the time, a spirited discussion and negotiation on the agreement. But we are pleased to provide these resources to the city. I know they're needed, and I know there are probably a number of things that you have in mind for them. And I hope what this shows is that we follow through on the commitments that we make. We treat each individual community as a unique entity. And the agreement, for example, we reached in Blanco County was different than the agreement we reached in Kyle and Gillespie and Kimball and the rest of the counties. Each was unique, and this was unique to the City of Kyle. We want to be a good partner. I hope, I know the city manager and our team communicate regularly on any issues that come up, and I think we've addressed those in a prompt way. And the restoration, I know the construction process can be it's construction, so it can be problematic in some ways if you're constructing in someone's property. But at the end of the day, the restoration is the key component, and restoring the property to its original condition or as close to it as we can. I think you've seen that, and you can see that on our rights of way if you take a look at it. So, and we are also pleased to take, I know the mayor visited the right of way, and a couple of members of the council. Members of your public works team and others have been very observant of our activities and what we're doing, and we appreciated working with everyone involved with the City of Kyle. So we're pleased to make this initial $1.35 million payment. Again, another one is coming within the next year or earlier, and we look forward to working with the City of Kyle for many years in the future. And if anybody has any questions, Mayor, I'm happy to respond.
Thank you, Alan. I have a couple very brief comments, but I yield the floor if anybody wants to make any remarks or ask any questions of Mr. Four. Alan, I just want to say, and I'm sorry, Councilmember Tobias, I couldn't see you from the screen the way it was if you had your hand up. But Alan, I just want to say it's been an interesting couple years, and I think that it's important to separate out the the challenges that and deal points that we were really pushing hard on from you personally and the way this project has sort of progressed. Because when you say you stand behind what you say and follow through on what you say, those are I'm always skeptical when it comes to contractors, vendors, and folks looking to do work in our area or make money in our area. And I've found that statement to be truthful. Of you in particular, you've had a very hard job. And there's a couple scenarios that come to mind that make me pleased with the work you and others that are dealing with the city have provided. Number one was our issue behind Post Oak, when we had the releasing of the valves and the noise complaints that came out of that. Kinder Morgan responded very quickly. And since that day, we've received no more noise complaints. At least I personally have received no more since that day. And I think that was a tribute to your willingness to respond and go above and beyond and make sure that that doesn't happen again. Number two was when I was on that right-of-way tour to see the work, you pointed something out, which was actually kind of interesting to me. We were watching the construction vehicles, and there was a big truck going through town, making a turn, and very nearly clipped some branches off of a very nice live oak tree out in that general area. And you made a comment to me that Kinder Morgan would have never even come close because you have the vehicle in front and behind and a particular set of protocols to make sure that you wouldn't do such a damage. Not every contractor who comes to town has that level of focus towards doing the job very professionally in the right way. And I think honestly, that's because Kinder Morgan received and continues to receive, it's the nature of the line of work, just an incredible amount of scrutiny. And so for that level of care, which I certainly believe in terms of the process that y'all have gone through to make sure that the project is happening professionally, I commend you, because I do think that you did a good job getting through town quickly, responding whenever we have reached out about issues, and then obviously following through with the provisions of our settlement agreement, which requires it to be natural gas, not crude. Also requires it to be buried deeper in many key areas, vulnerable areas, and areas that intersect with our infrastructure and our planned infrastructure. And so while the debate raged on from the standpoint of whether it was appropriate for Kinder Morgan to come through town, the follow-up and the follow-through on the things you've said you would do, at least to me and to the representatives of the city acting on behalf of the council, it's been encouraging. And so I just want to commend you for that. And also thank you for following through on that check. That's something that we need as a community. We're constantly looking for ways to invest, to make our town more beautiful, to make our town safer, with better infrastructure and lower taxes, and large checks help us to balance out that equation because of how much we are growing and how much strain there is, not only on our budget, but on our infrastructure as well. So I think you did the best that you could, trying to work on behalf of your company and your shareholders, and certainly don't fault you for any of those things. So with that, I just say thank you for coming. Thank you for getting your construction through. I'll be honest, I'm glad you're done. I think many people are, and so thank you, and thank you for coming here and presenting to council.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has any more comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of, let's move on to the next item, which is where some of those resources could be heading, and move on to a presentation from Ann Coleman regarding landscape design for Mary Kyle Hartson, City Square Park. I asked Ann if she would come and do a presentation based on where she's at, since we authorized her to start the design work for Mary Kyle Hartson Park and the square in particular. And she gave me a sneak preview the other day. I'm not the one on the task force, so I didn't have the input on the design, but Ann's been working hard. And I thought that because we're receiving the check, which if council is to continue moving forward, funding the project through these settlement dollars, this would be a good time for Ann to show us just the very beginning concepts that she's working on for how she might be looking at the the square for design, and I think she's got a lot of good things to say. So with that, I will yield the floor to Ann for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and city staff and everyone else that's on the phone call. We are more than delighted to be with you tonight and very excited, as Mayor Travis said, to show you the beginnings of what we think will be an incredible asset and rejuvenator and facilitator of community in your community right in the heart of downtown. So with that, Jose, who is the project manager for the project, who's put together a beautiful document, will kick us off on this presentation. What we're seeing here is the overall site plan of the square, with Center Street at the north, Burleson to our west, Main to the east, and Miller Street to the south. The existing features of the park are, of course, the old City Hall, which is now the Senior Activity Center, the gazebo to the southeast, the existing fountain, and there are some historic benches, picnic tables that are on site that will be remaining as well. The diagonal crosswalks that are existing today are presently 4 feet wide. We are proposing that because they are in the historic designated amenities, we are proposing and hope we can get approval and some support to widen them to 6 feet wide, primarily for ADA access. ADA access, which is a federal mandate, requires that movement for a wheelchair is 3 feet wide. So at their present width of 4 feet wide, that only enables a wheelchair alone to travel, which is not the spirit of that law. The spirit of the law is that you could have a companion walking side by side with you, so you're not separated from the other pedestrians. So for that reason alone, 6 feet wide, we think, would be a much better facilitator of movement through the park. And again, it's historic in its nature anyway. So that's one of our goals there. The other circulation goal that we're very excited about is noted, can I point here, Jose?
Yes.
Is noted as number 7 on our plan, which is a 10 feet wide, stabilized, decomposed granite path, which we're very excited about because it allows one to move from any point on the square to the interior and then move all the way through the park without getting on the diagonals. And so it really unifies these different spaces that we're going to talk about in a minute, these different quadrants, each with a different purpose on site. And so we really like this idea of this park-like path that is able to move a lot of people. Another highlight of the project is what we are calling it the promenade. It's a linear plaza. It's 20 feet wide, which is generous enough to facilitate several things. One would be, for example, a farmer's market where you could put tents up on one side. Another purpose would be just, as I said, a linear plaza. You could have seating all the way down here. You could also have like a book fair, or you could have healthcare vans, like there's a vaccination or come get your pets looked at. These would be lay down curb spots where you could get a vehicle in here, like a food truck festival, for example, and that would accommodate vehicular traffic as well as pedestrian traffic. So it's a really nice kind of urban spine that really moves from the center of Center Street all the way to Miller. And I think it really is nice that it just kind of unifies the center of this with activity. In this center area, presently the flagpoles are right here outside of the back door. And it's kind of got an awkward relationship here. So we are proposing moving the flagpoles over to this area. Is that correct, Jose?
Number 6.
Number 6. Thank you. I was like, I knew it was close to this area. So number 6. So they are still on axis and formal, but they're out of the way of this area. This promenade, I forgot to mention, is all pavers. So it's got a very much of kind of a downtown, old town feel to it. I'll go back up to the top. Up here, which is perfect to mention at this time of the year, is the holiday tree location. right here in the center. The rest of the time of year, it would be annual color, or it could even be some sort of, it could be a small piece of sculpture that you could remove. It could be signage. And around that is a place to gather around the holiday tree. And it could be used year round too for gathering points throughout the year. Across from that are two little minor sidewalks under these gorgeous trees for picnic tables. So that's showing here. So you could get a piece of pie, you could get food from your food truck and gather in this picnic area amongst, like I said, these trees. The trees are faded back so we can see what's going underneath them, but you can see they're throughout the park. We're not proposing to remove any tree. There is one tree in this area, I believe it's this one. Is that right, Jose? It's right, you're right, it's this one. There is one tree right here that doesn't look like it's doing very well, and it does fall in the middle of this, this particular, as I mentioned, the radius sidewalk. So we will look at that carefully. If the tree stays, we would just move that path out slightly to accommodate it. But right now it seems like it's not doing really, really well. Another big activator and highlight of the park is utilizing this gazebo in a slightly different way. Having been out there now several times during this project, observing people using the park on different days and different hours. Right now, a few people, they gather here, but they also spread out. So there's no real consolidated area for children to play. And it's really interesting to watch the kids. They'll run around, but they're almost like looking for something to do, it seems. So we are proposing integrating a nature playscape. This playscape is it's off the shelf. In other words, it's readily available and it's certified safe. So it's not like just sawn logs off of a property, but it looks very natural. We'll show you some examples of what that looks like. So it would go here amongst the trees. So ideally, parents could sit here and observe their children playing in the playground, so there's more synergy in this area. South of that, and a little bit west, we've kept this just as an open, flexible lawn. So if there is some sort of ceremony, a person could stand here and we could put tables and chairs in this open, flexible lawn. So it's a very flexible piece of the park down here that is anchored by the gazebo. And then on the southwest quadrant, we have a botanical garden, which we'll show you in a little more detail. But we're going to zoom in on these a little bit so you can kind of get a feel. These, of course, are inspiration boards. They're obviously not exactly what we're looking at here, but to give you a feel for what this area would look like, this is kind of a rendition. Of course, ours is at a smaller scale, but we would have articulated pavement like so, and a kind of a radius treatment at this plaza, and that's where our tree would go ceremonially at the holiday season. The type of furniture that we're talking about is something that is ADA accessible. This is a steel structure. It can be anchored. It's got plenty of room for people to gather. There's 4-foot ones, there's 6-foot ones, there's 7-foot ones. So we plan on having a variety of lengths for people to choose from in this area. So that's an example of what that picnic table might look like. And then here in this area, closer to the center, we're looking at doing like an artificial turf or lawn space to put out Adirondack furniture. Again, these are heavy duty. They're made from a recycled product. So they're not what you see at Lowe's and Home Depot. They're decidedly different, and they're made for commercial space. This is an actual photo of one of our projects where this product was used. So something that's more lounge-like in this area. And of course, we talked a little bit about the holiday tree. You want to get me to the next page? Thank you. This is the area where we were talking about the gazebo. So we're trying to show how this gazebo might be used for a ceremonial lawn in this area, similar to this, where the chairs could all be lined up in here under the trees, and you could have an event in this quadrant. And then the playscape, this is, again, kind of an inspiration of what that playscape might look like. This might have a little bit more equipment than the size of our space would allow, but you can see how it's not primary colors. We don't want to propose anything in this park that looks trendy or new, brand spanking new. It needs to be soft and very accessible and blend in with the trees and the lawn and the existing plantings on site. And then this is an example of what this path may look like. Again, it's not concrete, so it's very soft and recreational. Would have planting along the way. So that's an idea here of how that may circulate through the park on this side of the promenade. The other area is where the fountain is, right next to the existing of City Hall. And so that is showing that the fountain right now presently has pavement right up to it. And we are, right now the vault sits right here, the pump vault does. So we're gonna add some planting around the, just low planting, as you can see here, something low that kind of just keeps people away from the fountain and makes it kind of sit down in the landscape a little bit more and be a softer expression of this space right here, much more park-like. And let's see, the promenade we've already talked about a little bit. You can see how it interacts with that landscape area. We would propose 4 new trees in this area because right now it's a lot of concrete pavement. So we're actually shrinking the amount of heat island in that area too. So it's going to be much more comfortable space. Okay, our really fun spot here is the botanical garden. This is an idea of what we want it to look like. Xeriscape plants, places to sit, maybe a bird bath, bird feeder, and along the promenade, having every other post maybe have a hanging basket on it. Again, the promenade and how that path would look going throughout it. So lots of places to enjoy the vegetation here. We would have some rain garden material in here too for education purposes. So if you have a student field trip in here, they can see how the native plants work to manage water quality. And again, the native plants and how they attract pollinators and birds. So a very soft, meandering educational space right there in the southwest quadrant. Is that it?
That's it.
I believe that's it. I hope that gives you an overall view of where we are. As the mayor mentioned, this is our first blush at and first solution, and things are fitting very well, even within the budget right now. That's where we are, is looking for feedback for where we are and making sure we're within the budget and the goals for meeting the desires for the Historic Commission and, of course, everybody else in the community. So with that, I am more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ann. Does anybody have any questions? Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you. First of all, great to see you, Ann, and meet you as well, Jose, over there on the side. And I was halfway expecting the red glasses.
I know. Well, I have maroon tonight, so there you go.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But the Aggies did win, so.
Yes, they did. Where are you at, Rizzo?
Well,
Wrecking crew defense.
That's right.
Well, we certainly appreciate the presentation. This is exciting for a number of us. And I was really excited to see what you've been doing. And I was really happy to hear, you've spent quite a bit of time observing in our downtown park and the actions that are going on there. Obviously, still even in a pandemic, people understand the importance of open spaces and green spaces and being outdoors. So thank you for that due diligence. If we could go to the slide that kind of shows the larger picture, that'd probably be helpful for me to kind of point out things. And where to begin on this. So one, there are a lot of aspects I love about this. Certainly this bottom, I guess that would be the southwest corner where your marker is there. I absolutely love this. Adding green plant space, and I love the educational idea you had behind it, botanical gardens, all that stuff is wonderful, particularly that right now that southwest corner kind of is the it's kind of left out. I'll just say that. Right. So that to me speaks volumes. I love the idea of what you're doing in that area. So that quadrant, in my opinion, is fantastic. I actually do really like the promenade idea, as well as the what are you calling it? The radio unifying path. I like that idea. One question I had immediately with the promenade, I'm sure the unifying path will be permeable. Was the idea with the promenade to be permeable pavers?
We could use permeable pavers. Yes, we can. And we use a lot of those at the Miller Development Project. So
Wow.
certainly they're a little more expensive, but we can certainly try to get them in there. We may have to reduce them a little bit if so, but I think that's an excellent thought and no reason why we shouldn't be able to do so.
Yeah, fantastic. And one of the things I loved about it, particularly when we were talking about that southwest quadrant, is that educational piece and stormwater management and different things like that. And so that I know that's something we're trying to incorporate in other parts of our city, is LID, green infrastructure, and some of the different ways we can do that. So just an idea, and if that could be kicked around and see what could be done with that, I think that would be really neat.
Great idea.
Let's see. I do like the idea of adding the trees in the central area there, and kind of trees are important. Trees are huge. I think they also attract people, and people want shade particularly, and trees provide that opportunity. I don't know if you noticed, but it was brought up by, I was actually in our downtown square today watching our staff do last minute touches on our Christmas decorations. And one of the staff members brought up to me about that fountain. And she was talking about her OCD qualities and how that it's slightly not centered. And I wonder if you noticed that. I'm sure you did. One thing I did like about your proposal here is adding that green space around the fountain. I think that would be a great addition to it. I always felt like, there's a whole story with that fountain. I'm sure somebody might fill you in on that one day. But one thing I've really thought about it, and you had a great picture earlier showing a fountain with the plantation around it and different things like that. And I think that's a really awesome look. And I think that would really add a lot to that fountain as well.
I think so too. It'll make, like I said, I use the term sit in better, but it feels like it's sticking out right now. And this, I think, will settle it into the landscape.
Right. Absolutely. You did make a remark about the trees. I know you've gone through there and done your observations and assessments of them. You're exactly right where your marker is right now. We've been talking about that tree actually, particularly since we've been doing the decorations. I guess at some point it was popular to put some kind of structure around the root base of a tree, and it created this the root system to kind of bulk up and whatnot. And obviously it's not good for the tree. As much as we would love to save our trees and different things like that, I'm sure you'll make the best recommendations for what we should do with that.
And sometimes those are obviously the most difficult of decisions to make. Having had to make many of them over my career, putting in a new, healthier tree, it doesn't take too long, maybe 5 years for that new tree to have the same canopy as the one you remove. And it's younger and healthier, and it's basic succession planting. So as painful as it is, it's horticulturally and arboriculturally a good thing to consider to do.
That's good to know. So if that did go down that route, and then you also mentioned adding 4 additional trees to the center, what type of trees would you have in mind for that?
And here would more than likely something like a chinkapin, I think would be nice. It's a little small for live oaks there. Chinkapins being more upright, very similar to a red oak. And we don't have a lot of variety of trees, obviously, in the park. So introducing some new species that are native to our area, I think would be a good thought. So I think I would do something like a chinkapin, being a mid-size open canopy tree.
Awesome. I will look that up. I'm not familiar with that type of tree and how that looks, but definitely something to research on.
I'm sorry. I was going to mention that you bring up a good point, which is there's more good things to come. Once we get a general consensus that this is the direction we want to pursue, we will bring even more information during the next phase of design development, not only incorporating your thoughts today, but getting more and more specific about species and such, and paver types will be next.
Yeah, absolutely. Just did a quick search of the chinkapin, right? Chinkapin tree.
That's
It's a
correct.
very gorgeous tree. And then, so I guess going back to the tree we were talking about that is struggling there, where the number 7 is, would that be replacing it with? I guess what type of tree would we, if that were to be the route, what would be the idea in replacing that tree?
I would propose a live oak, I believe. I think it was a live oak. I think having a healthier, younger live oak would be a good idea. And it may be that we want to look closely about whether we need to add a couple of more young trees, maybe not just live oaks. But I think having the major canopy of live oak is indicative of how the site has been historically. So I would hesitate to add too many different varieties in that core. I think in here we could introduce some more ornamental trees, because this is not a complete design yet, but we may have some red buds or bohinias and desert willows, just so the composition of this is complete, not only with plants, but some ornamental trees that really spice up the variety for the learning experience in that quadrant.
I love that. That's a great idea. 2 other comments, and then council, I'll stop talking. But I'm interested to see on section 5, the kitty corral idea. Certainly, you make a good point about children probably out there looking for something to do. It's not, your typical kind of children park, but so that will be interesting, and as that evolves, and I'll be curious about how that comes about. I like the idea of the lawn space in the southeast quadrant next to the gazebo. It is, I've seen, sometimes I will walk down there and I'll see, even during the pandemic, where there's been like very small groups, they're distanced from each other, and they'll just sit there and have long distance talks under that gazebo and different things. It's really unique. And I think even one of the examples you gave, it kind of showed where the gazebo and then the seating outside there. So certainly something could be had. We had a proposal in that square last year during the holiday season. So maybe we'll get a wedding in there. So, but last thing I just wanted to say, I think, I appreciate the attention to detail and you all working on this. I've been excited about you being a part of this, Ann and your team. Some might not know, but you did the work outside of Kyle Field down in College Station, and now you're working here in Kyle, where is one of the sons of the Kyle family. So that, I think that's pretty cool and unique. My last comments will be just about the Hayes Historical Commission. Obviously, being very cognizant of working with them. I just want to see if those communications have already started, or those anticipated on coming here in the near future, and just very briefly of how those are going.
Yes, we met with Kate Johnson, yes, was that Tuesday or Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Tuesday.
Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We met her out there. She was very accommodating because we were speaking to you guys and suggested that we go ahead and initiate that. She was lovely. We had a packet that you're seeing tonight, a hard copy, and oriented her on site and walked through all of the elements. She had a couple of comments about the picnic tables. We originally had thought about relocating them from this area into this area, and even maybe not using them as picnic tables anymore, but taking the tops off and using them as stepping stones or a place for bench, because they don't meet ADA, and they've got, because of the time that they were built, they don't have the right heights. They're not comfortable. But she was not excited about that idea. That was really her only comment. I did ask her at the end of the presentation what her impressions were, and she said that she appreciated everything. She'd get back with us, and that she was going to contact, I believe, the Texas Historic Commission and initiate that, which we would like to be involved in that too, of course, because we would love to present our work on your behalf, because we do that well. And that's one of our next discussion points with you, is some direction on what to do next in that regard.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited to hear that. You're absolutely right. Mrs. Johnson is a very sweet lady. And that the way you've described her is no different than my impression of her and my interactions with her as well. I had a feeling you were going to mention that, and she might have some comments about those picnic tables. And having conversations with some folks, including our staff, the likelihood of moving those and keeping them intact is probably very low to none.
Yes.
So that may be a challenge, but I like the idea and the ingenious of maybe reusing them and repurposing them. So obviously that we'll have some more discussions and some conversations with the Historical Commission on figuring that out. The one last comment, I promise I'm done, Council, after this, was the attention to the American with Disabilities Act and your points on widening the sidewalks and different things and incorporating that throughout the entire park. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. Any further comments or questions?
Mayor, Councilmember Rizzo. Yeah, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I really appreciate what you're doing around the fountain. I'm not a big fan of that fountain, but what you're proposing is really going to add a lot of, take a little bit away from the fountain and give it a little more features to it to make it more presentable in that area and give it a lot more aesthetics. I think that's what it was lacking. I think it was just too big of a focal centerpiece there, and adding the landscape around it, I think is going to make it very beautiful. I think it's going to make it a lot better. One of the things I want to point out is over on the Burleson side of this, the old City Hall, historic City Hall. Yeah, in that area right there, that's usually, for some reason, that's considered the back door, but it's usually our front door, because everybody goes in and out of that door because of the parking and not having to hit the steps on the other side of the building. I'd like to see.
Feed just went out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really wanted to hear what he was about to say too, because
Yeah. Hold on.
Councilmember Rizzo, sorry, we lost you. We lost the feed there for just a second. You got you back now, so go ahead.
Okay, so on that side is actually what many of our residents of ours considered the front door for some reason, even though it's not. It's actually the back door. But I'd love to see something in that area that's welcoming. I always think of Kyle's a very welcoming city. I'd love to see something there that honors that. No matter how much we've grown, we've always been a very welcoming city. And I'd like to see something in that area that maybe would signify that. If you could come up with something, I'd really appreciate it for that part of the square.
Point very well taken, because we have not focused as much around the building itself. You can see here we're really not showing anything. So it's time for us to absolutely, I appreciate that feedback, give this some attention.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Rizzo. I agree with your comments. So wholeheartedly. Any other questions or comments? And I had one brief one, and it's really more of the technical and landscaping. I'm sorry, on the lighting and the irrigation. Are those plans that will be forthcoming as we get further? I know you're not into that technical phase yet. Just wanted to hear that if we're going to be doing a lot of these plantings, that while we're in there turning that dirt, that we're installing the proper irrigation so that we can maintain this at the level that it is installed.
Absolutely. And we're starting to indicate that these are being streetscape fixtures, but we have not gotten to that level. It is time for us to do so. Once these elements, we know that they're going to stay where they are, and it sounds like we're in pretty good shape moving forward, then that's exactly what we'll do, is support these pathways that we decided upon and new spaces, and make sure that they have lighting, irrigation, and the soil area, the surface area of the park needs some good organic matter incorporated in the top 2 to 3 inches before we plant new sod out there, or even seed, and if it's the seeded areas in these wildflower zones. But absolutely, that is the next step, is lighting.
Okay, and then I was also I prefer the children's playscape area that you have proposed there, because it all looks very low profile and non-intrusive. The image below shows those features, which I think, the balance beams, I think that's perfect. I'm a little bit concerned about some large structure there, and I don't think there's room for that anyway. So my feedback to you on that is to keep going in direction that you're showing here on number 5, and not to spend personally, too much time trying to build some large vertical structures. There's other places for that, and that square is probably not one of them. But that's a nice little low profile way to have the kids be doing something while the mom and dad are walking around or having a meeting with friends. It keeps them engaged and helps them to stay there longer, which invites families to come and stay longer and helps with commerce. So it's certainly good, but that'd be my feedback on that.
Absolutely. Which it brings up another question. We haven't looked into doing this yet, but we are thinking about having an exterior water fountain and with a place for a dog to have a bowl filled too. And more than likely our water source for potable water will be off of this building. So if I can get a nod of agreement that that might be an amenity that we want to add to this, we will explore that further. Any thoughts about that?
I'm lukewarm, but I understand the thought process personally. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Whether you want to add a designated area for animals to get a drink,
or even humans, the drinking fountain, yeah, water bottle filler, something like that.
I think with COVID-19 being what it is right now, and I guess we're moving away from those areas. Our hope is hopefully to have the infrastructure, maybe a little restaurant or something nearby, and more shops that people could come out, get some ice cream, snow cone, maybe a drink, and come out to the park, enjoy it. Coffee is what our vision for that is. So I think we'd be okay without having that fountain there.
Okay. That's perfectly good, because that is always something you could add later if you needed to. So that's good to know. We are also not showing any bicycle parking here so far. I kind of feel like we probably should provide a few. Are there any thoughts about that?
I'm more interested in that. As long as it's not big, because there's different ways of doing bicycle parking. You can have it be some prominent feature, expecting lots of people, which is not likely. But at any point, there might be someone wanting to take a ride and would like to park their bike. That's certainly in the spirit of the walkability that we're looking for. So something modest would be my feedback, but certainly if you can find a spot for it. But that's just my thoughts. Council?
I agree, something modest as well. Nothing too bulky or out of its way. I think that it certainly sets in the spirit of our pedestrian friendly and connectability there. Taking a step back on the water thing, I actually do like the idea, just not in the traditional sense of a water fountain that you put your hands on and different things. There are the ones where you simply put something under it to refill your water. And then as well as, the little, I know they have the footstool, the foot press ones for animals and different things. I know that is something always very much appreciated of pet owners when they have a place to hydrate their pets.
Okay. Well, we may look at, the opportunity of where we would place one and maybe, provide an outlet or something that doesn't preclude it from being added. And if we can, include it in the estimate for the whole project, maybe we look at that as an optional item. And look at that again as we further develop.
I think maybe part of what our consternation is here on that is if you go to Greg Clark Park, we have exterior water fountains, and they haven't worked as long as I've been here. I've never been able to get water out of them. So I'm thinking about the long term and what's it going to look like 5 years from now. So if you've got something in mind in particular in that area and some good images to show how it would stay functional without lots of maintenance, that would also be helpful, I think, as a presentation piece.
Okay. Well, during the next phase, then we'll look at that, bring some ideas forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I appreciate the presentation. I know there's a long way to go. Here in just a few minutes, we're going to have a conversation about kind of a public engagement process and what that might look like as we're continuing to move forward. I know you're moving forward with this contract and doing your design work, so we're not necessarily trying to slow anything down, but setting up an opportunity to present to more than just the council, because this isn't really where we get our best audience. That'll be a discussion we'll have here in just a minute. Anything else before
Would
we
you
move on?
like for me to stay online to bounce ideas off of, or should I?
Well, it's that agenda item is in the spirit of this one. The only reason I had it separated was because of the 104 South Burleson contract and discussions. That project is not quite ready to go, and we still have a little bit more time on that one. So I'm not sure, Scott, if they're even if that group is here. But if you have thoughts on that, and you could go ahead and present it now, and we could just have that conversation so that you can get on about your day.
Oh, if I have thoughts about the public engagement, is that what you're asking me?
Well, I have thoughts, but if you wanted to have a discussion about it now, I don't know if Cadence McShane is here. Scott, I can't see the council chambers.
Well, would you like me to go ahead and start, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think public engagement is fantastic, and we do it all the time. Generally, when we start the public engagement process, we start from a blank slate, and we in this condition, in this situation, of course, we have some givens. You know, we have obviously the gazebo, we have the Old College City Hall, we have the tower with the bell in it, we have some fixed items, and we would show those. And then generally we brainstorm with the community on things they would like to see in the park. That's the purest way of public engagement. I'm sure it's not the first time y'all have experienced that. In this case, where we're much further along, we would probably just do something similar to what we've done today, is present kind of where we are and get their response to it. The only concern I would have is how to moderate it if you get dissenters or people that want something completely different. You know, for example, they could say, I want a splash pad, or I want it to stay like it is because I like more open grass. Just how to field those questions when they come up. Of course, I'm capable of giving my opinion, but it's really not my opinion that ultimately matters. It's the opinion of trying to draw a consensus with your leadership, right? And the wisdom that y'all have encountered in even proposing all of this. So that would be my only concern, is the position we would be in if we get those that have concerns, how to answer their concerns without blowing this thing up.
Right. Well, that's certainly, it's a delicate path, because this council has tried to be proactive, understanding that moving the city forward and revitalizing downtown is something that many of us hold near and dear, and so but at the same time, we want to engage the city and make sure that the city just gets an opportunity to look at these projects firsthand. Some of the public engagement that we've done in the past ahead of decisions really hasn't gotten a lot of feedback one way or another, and then the feedback comes after the thing is brought forward, and so there's just not a whole lot that we can do, because getting everybody to agree on landscaping of the square is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen one way or another. And if you said, does everybody want to keep it the same, you'd get a lot of no's and some yeses, and do you want to change it? It's a lot of no's. And so what I'm not trying to do is get you to go and build consensus for the council and on behalf of the council. That's not the point. The point is to give the public an opportunity to hear what is being prepared in the early goings of the design, so that any of those smaller feedbacks and ideas that people have that are maybe good, that maybe we haven't thought of, could be brought back to the council as feedback, as well as to you as well. And that's kind of the spirit of it. So I love the presentation that you just gave. I think that would be a good presentation to give in a different setting than the one we have here. and then to give the people that do participate an opportunity to provide that feedback, and then bring that feedback to the council and allow us to have another discussion about it at that time.
Another let's see, it's another presentation style that we've used in the past is the storytelling mode, having an image that shows where the historic features are, really building the story behind what was there and then what's yet to come. And then maybe showing some 3D images of people in the park so that they can really see what it's going to feel like here for those that can't read plans very well. Y'all see it a lot, as you well know, but some people will get a little disoriented with even the scale. You know, for example, the real difference maker in this, believe it or not, is going to be the promenade. I mean, it's going to really, everything else is going to look great and support the overall park, but that promenade is going to be very impactful when it's in the ground, but you really can't tell it by looking at this image. So
Right.
it would help us communicate to them to do this just slightly differently, but show them how we came up with these ideas, why we put in the radius unifier, why we have the playscape where we do, kind of showing it layering up. And then maybe showing them some options within this, saying that we can do a playscape like this, or out of this material, we could do one like that, and letting them have some input into it.
Yeah. I think it sounds to me like you have your mind wrapped around it pretty well.
Okay.
So, and you do a very good job at presenting and designing creatively and thoughtfully. So I'm not concerned about it so long as you're the one behind it, because I think you've been developing a lot of trust with us up till this point, and so we're glad to have you at the helm. So
Well, that sounds okay to you. We would enjoy putting that together, and I do think the storytelling and explaining how we derive this will get more people invested and excited than just saying, here it is, right? So.
Well, and it very well could have to be virtual at this point as well. So if we have it, you know, let's say in the next 4 or 5 weeks, you know, it very well could be virtual, maybe right after the first of the new year. Do y'all have a date? I know this isn't new. I pinged you about it before, just so you could be thinking about all that. The
yes, Mr. Sellers, I think, proposed the 14th or 16th of January. Yeah, I want to say 16th.
Yes, Mayor, it's the 14th, Thursday the 14th at 7 p.m. is the proposed date.
Okay. And would that time frame work for me? Like, would that slow you down necessarily, understanding that there's additional feedback that we're going to be receiving on this project at that time?
The presentation that I'm proposing, we can do within that time period. And if the feedback we get is minor, I don't think so. The question that we would have for us as a team, including you guys, is should we continue to move forward with our documents prior to that meeting? Or should we hit the pause button until then?
Council, do you have thoughts on that question?
I have a question in general, please. This is
Councilmember Flores-Cale, go ahead.
Yes, in regards to her virtual idea, I was just wondering if it was possible to make a video which we can post online so people can watch it during their own time, or just like scrolling through their Facebook, or even on our website. So that way they don't have to like watch it at a specific time.
A video of the design, or us presenting it?
You were just talking about how like you could interact and tell the history and like go into explanation. Can you make that into a video that we can just like repost online?
Can we, Jose?
We could probably go with Chris.
Yeah.
She's made a couple videos here.
It may not be highly refined, but I think we could.
I think it's just going to be really hard to get residents involved all at one time. And if we truly value their feedback, giving them the ability to watch the video, you know, within a week time frame on their own time and reading their comments might be a little more helpful to developing this part of the city.
Okay. I think if anything, we could have this in a PowerPoint and even a voiceover
I
with
think
me.
that's the best option.
Yeah, would probably be the easiest rather than a movie video, but I think I could tell the story. Do you think that would work just as well as just a verbal description as it goes through the presentation?
I think you do an amazing job at describing things, and I think that people will love you as long as you just go in there and continue to be genuine. I think you'll do an excellent job.
Okay, then let's do it.
I agree with everything that Councilmember Flores-Kell said. So, and maybe even as much as like a, if it's virtual and you're doing some kind of Ring Central or some kind of Zoom situation, we can broadcast it live on Facebook, or if that is too technical, we can record the screen and the presentation and that dynamic, and then upload that to our social media platforms and on the city page, maybe even create a page. I'm talking to IT, you know, a downtown revitalization URL where the presentation could be hosted with some text. It doesn't have to all fall on you, Ann, to do that. Certainly we have the ability to support in those ways as well. But getting the information out there at this stage in such a way that we can engage and get some of that feedback in the earlier stages, I think would be helpful. The question's still out there, though, as to whether or not between now and January 16th, we want them to put pencils down, or whether or not we think that they should continue moving forward. And I'd love to get some feedback on that.
Okay, can you clarify that a little bit? Like, do we want them to stop developing it and just, I guess I don't understand your question.
Well, what Ann is saying is that this project is already past the point of where it's not a blank slate. It's more about we're presenting kind of a vision and you know, these concepts and asking for feedback on the plan that we are embarking on. And Ann is under contract, and so they're actively building this out. They're getting feedback and incorporating new elements, but there's a lot of engineering and architectural work behind a concept plan that they'll be working on over the next 6 weeks by contract. And so she's saying, you know, if we continue down this path and then there's a hard change as a result of some public engagement, would that be, you know, is that the right path, or would it be better to slow down right now until we go through a process of a public hearing? I think the plan that you've got is pretty amazing. So I think the public will be very happy to provide feedback, but I don't anticipate that there would be major revisions. But some of the points and questions that you have, Ann, about the tables and the historic commission and the tree and a few of those things would be the areas where, you know, we might have to make moves after the 16th, depending on if everybody says, you know, we love these tables, we want them to stay right where they are, for example, or something like that. I'm not sure that's what the general population would say, but, you know, there has to still be some flexibility. So if you continue down the path that you're on and council or public is giving feedback and the council is affirming that feedback, you would still be able to make changes after the 16th. Even if you're going. That's kind of my thinking, is march forward, but not in such a way that we're boxed in by the 16th.
Yeah, the only thing that keeps me up at night every now and then is the historic commissions, both of them, saying, you know, we don't want to change the circulation in the park. We don't want you to touch the sidewalks. That keeps me awake more than anything else that the public would be concerned about.
Well, we've known that was the biggest dialogue that you're going to have, and I'm glad you've already started it, and it's going to have to continue for sure.
Right. And I don't know about that timing, and I hate to switch subjects on you, but the timing of the Historic Commission is kind of their timing, the way I'm kind of reading it. And I'm wondering if we can't put our heads together, maybe this is more of a question than a direction, is between Parks and Rec, City Council, the local. I mean, I think we need to approach them together. Am I making sense? I mean, we need to make a request. I think a formal request, because we need to move quickly. I think we all want this built next calendar year. And if they wait another 90 days to get back with us, it's going to be tough.
Well, I think that should be a separate track that marches forward immediately, because these questions, they're going to be able to provide you the feedback, whether you like it or don't. They're going to provide that feedback. So nothing should delay the conversations with the historical commission, and a public town hall type engagement event shouldn't have any bearing on that.
Right.
So whether you want to go fast or not, we still have to go at the pace of whatever the historic commission will allow. But anything the council can do to help in that regard, as far as furthering those conversations, also please don't hesitate to let us know.
Okay.
Councilor Ellison.
Yeah, I definitely see the challenges all the way around. On the benefit is this is being recorded, and we can certainly use what we have this evening to kind of help start that process of public engagement. You know, we could certainly pull this clip out of the agenda, maybe even make it as all of our meetings are archived and folks can watch it anytime, but maybe pulling this clip and then presenting that and helping push that through our channel, maybe even making a separate page on our website saying, hey, and soliciting feedback that way prior to that time. So maybe, we can be aware of any strong public sentiment either way on this part. That would be another thing, but I certainly understand time being of essence on, you all working, you're under contract, essentially, we're paying you, and as well as the going forward with partnering and figuring things out with the historical commissions. Just an idea.
It's also a good one. Ann, do you have enough from us at this point?
I believe I do. I think we have a good handle on the public presentation, how we'd like to format that. I think there's some good thoughts there. I guess one last question regarding the historic commissions is there an order to meeting with them? In other words, we have met with Kate Johnson. She mentioned that she was going to go to the state herself, but should we call the state ourselves and initiate it, or allow her to facilitate that? I don't know the dynamics there or the process there.
I would say engage the state on your own, and if you're doing it via email, you certainly bring Kate into that dialogue. So okay. that would be my recommendation, as well as the board. But it might be worth asking when their next meeting is and what that process might look like. Jerry Hendricks should be able to help you with that as well.
Okay. I think that's it. Jose, do you have any other questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Y'all have a nice evening, and thank you for having us tonight. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, next up, appointments. The next four are all related. They're the majority of the appointments that we set out, that we create and appoint every single year this time of the year. First is Mayor Pro Tem. The next is which is sort of an internal selection from this council made in order to support the council. And then the others are external. CAPCOG, CAMPO, and the R-1 boards are all very different boards with different time commitments, different meeting schedules, and different emphasis. But it's certainly important that we continue to provide representation from this body there. And one thing, as we're talking about these four items together, that it's important to know is when it comes to council voting to assign a council member and put I've lost the feed. Can you all still hear me at City Hall?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there you go. It went dark on me, but it's to say that the boards, the R-1 board, the CAPCOG, General Assembly, and CAMPO, in those contexts, we're sending out a council member sort of as an ambassador, and and the council member's duty is to represent the will of the council in those particular areas. So, for example, the R-1 board is something that's supported by the council and has been affirmed over and over for a decade. So if somebody didn't like the R-1 board or didn't like the project, for example, it wouldn't be good to step forward and try to move it in that direction you have to follow what the council is generally giving feedback on. But with that said, these boards are where you get an opportunity to meet people, the committees in particular, where you get opportunity to meet people across the region. CAMPO and ARWA in particular, there's just a lot of amazing people on those boards and on those seats. As Tracy mentioned earlier, the ARWA board meets twice a month, and it's, I forget what she said, the first and third Wednesday. It's during the day at 3 o'clock, because that board,
Mayor,
am I wrong on that?
It's once a month, and it's the fourth Wednesday of the month.
Fourth Wednesday of the month, so I was way wrong, but it is 3 o'clock still.
Yes, Mayor.
And we have a staff member who's already on the ARWA board, and so we have one staff member and one council member that have been there. I've served on it, and since Tracy served on it as well. It is a pretty big time commitment. Just so you know, when you're in there, there's a lot of technical discussions between public works departments and engineering companies. It's very much kind of an internal meeting. They rotate between our public works building. Sometimes the meetings are in San Marcos. I don't know if they've been in Buda before, but they kind of rotate around, and there's about, 15 or so folks there. And it's pretty interesting if you if you like water projects. The General Assembly for CAPCOG is a little bit different. CAPCOG is a very important and powerful organization. The majority of that power is wielded from the Executive Committee, which is a much smaller board similar in size to the CAMPO board, but the General Assembly is much broader. The General Assembly elects the Executive Board, and the General Assembly meets a couple times a year for lunch. They have presentations. They go through the agenda, the year-long agenda of that board. It's not near as much of a time commitment, but it's certainly interesting. And as Kyle continues to grow, a case could be made that eventually we might be able to get on the executive board, which would be pretty amazing. But you have to really have a lot of knowledge to get on that board. And then third is the CAMPO board. CAMPO is the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. They meet on the campus of UT every so often. I'm trying to remember. I am the current appointee to that board, but I am have a non-voting member status, which is the status that. Hang on, let me just get the last meeting date. The last one was, the next one is Monday the 7th, which it looks like they just canceled at 2 o'clock. They switch around the times. It's a very serious board. They discuss and allocate hundreds of millions of dollars. They have big focuses on I-35. It's the 5-county area plus Austin. There's representatives from every county and from some of the cities throughout the region. They have buckets, and Kyle's kind of been on the outside looking in for a while because they put folks on a selection from the small towns, a selection from the medium towns, and a selection from the big towns. And it's all about trying to create balance so that when the dollars that we're all fighting for are coming down, the goal there is for them to be distributed wisely, but also equitably. Kyle needs an ambassador on that board. Now that we've crossed the 50,000 threshold, we are very likely to be transitioning from a non-voting member to a voting member in this next calendar year. And so when we were bringing all these seats up, I wanted to go ahead and put that one up as well so that we can have discussions about all of them at the same time. So if there are no objections, I'm going to bring up all 4 items together. Agenda item number 6, consider nominations for selection of Mayor Pro Tem. Agenda item number 7, consider appointments to the Alliance Regional Water Authority Board of Directors to replace Tracy Scheel. Number 8, appoint a member of City Council to CAMPO. And agenda item number 9, consider appointment to CAPCOG General Assembly to replace Tracy Scheel. And if anybody has thoughts or desire to serve on any of these particular boards, now would be the time to bring that up, or if we have nominations, we can discuss them and then and then we can vote. One final thing is I know that there were some questions about, in particular, Mayor Pro Tem, as opposed to whether we should do it now or wait 2 weeks. The charter is ambiguous as to when we're supposed to do this exactly. It's clear that we're supposed to allow the council to be seated and then take that vote after the general election. General election has taken place. All the eligible members of the council have been elected, and so everyone eligible to be seated is here tonight. So in keeping with the timing, the way that we've done Mayor Pro Tem every year, first meeting in December as a general rule, I went ahead and put this one on to have the discussion and to also be able to give the backgrounds on some of these other items. If council would prefer to wait on this one as well as any of them until the next meeting, I'm also amicable to that. So I just wanted to put all that out there, give you the information. We are within our rights to move forward from the charter standpoint because it doesn't distinguish between, it doesn't say anything about mayoral elections because it's intended to be a seat selected from the council. So with all that, I'll open the floor. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments?
I have a comment. I was one of the people who was concerned about doing this today, mostly because Section 4.02 specifies after all the members of the council are elected. And so it was my understanding that the mayor is a part of or is a member of the council. And so after thinking about it, going back and forth, I decided to go back and look at the previous one where it was Diane Harbaugh and you guys had a runoff, and I was going to see what kind of the precedent was, and apparently that information is not online. So I was unable to comfortably make the decision whether or not we should move forward with this.
It's fair that selection was made after the runoff in that particular case because the charter would compel us in that case because if there's a runoff for a council seat, then the charter provision clicks in. So the problem still persists, but in that case, because it wasn't a mayoral, which is not a part of the selection of Mayor Pro Tem, it was weighted until after because I remember the selection, I believe it was Councilmember Fogley at that time, who became the Mayor Pro Tem. So they're a little bit different circumstances, but it's really up to the council. We've sought legal opinion. The legal opinion page has said that we can decide one way or the other because the charter doesn't speak. I'm fine moving forward with it. I believe we're on good legal grounds to do so. And because everybody who could be Mayor Pro Tem is is here in this meeting now. So that's completely up to the council, though, if they want to go a different direction. Paige, did you have anything you wanted to
add? Paige signs for the record. I didn't have anything to add. Was just making myself visible in case there are follow-up questions. I'm available if there are any.
Thank you, Paige.
Mayor, this is Councilman Tobias. I kind of would like to see if we can postpone this into the next City Council. Just for myself also to get more information about the other items that could be appointed for in fairness, such as CAMPCO and the General Assembly and what really goes on with the Alliance Regional Water Authority, so that way I could have a better decision. I know this was brought up on the agenda on Friday, and so I'd like to have a little bit more time to look at that, as well as the Mayor Pro Tem on this end. If at all possible, we can wait till after the next meeting, please. Thank you.
Okay. Other thoughts or comments?
Just a quick question. Does the mayor vote for Pro Tem as well?
The charter says that all members of the council and the mayor must vote on all items unless they have reason to abstain, and it gives the reasons for abstention, which are conflicts of interest, and in particular fiduciary or financial conflicts, and this doesn't qualify for that. So yes, I would vote. The mayor would vote.
Okay. Well, in all fairness to the situation, what it might be on December 8th, I think it would be a good idea to wait.
Other thoughts, comments?
Do you want to wait on all the nominations or just MPT?
I just want the Mayor Pro Tem, but it sounds like somebody else, Mr. Tobias may want, or Councilmember Tobias may want to wait for all of them so he can do a little bit more research.
My suggestion would be if we're going to wait on one, we should wait on all, because the point of the reason these other ones got brought up is so that we can kind of collectively look at all of this together and have that larger dialogue about different roles and responsibilities of council members. So
exactly. That's also my point on the rest of them. Besides item number 6, is to get a clear understanding of the job duties, the titles, the scheduling. If it's something that I'm interested as well, however, with my work schedule itself, if it's something that I would like to consider as well, but just to be in fairness with the council and everybody else's time, if it's something that I'm able to do, if I decide to go or make an appointment with one of these items that we have.
Mayor, Councilmember Rizzo, for the record, you said on appointment 7 that we do have 2 staff members on there right now on the.
I think it's 1 and 1. I think it's 1 staff member, 1 council member.
No,
there have been times when we've had. Is it 3? Do we have 3 total?
I'm being told that we have 3 total. Two. What do you call it? Staff members and 1 council member. So we would be okay right now if we waited on not appointing someone till later in the month for number 7?
Yes.
We'll be fine? Okay. At this time, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to wait on consent appointments 6, 7, and 8, and 9 to our next regular scheduled meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Tobias, that we wait on these items. We don't have to take a vote. We can just skip it, but that's also fine if you want to take a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any further discussions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next up, presentation, CIP road projects and consent agenda. Go ahead, Leon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. Let me just start real quickly on these projects. Lehman Road, the punch list items were completed today, and they're working on the paperwork to go ahead and close out the project. On Burleson Street, they still have some items on the punch list they need to complete, and so they're still working on those. There's still some work quantities that need to be addressed to close out and complete the final change orders on that project. I do want to point out that there is a pressure to get this contractor to open and complete that list, and there is, just to let you know, we are sitting on retainage, which is about 5% of the contract, which is about $300,000. So there is an incentive for him to wrap it up and get on to the next project. Next item. We're going to talk a little bit about the Windy Hill Street and Drainage Project. I wanted to kind of share with some of the new council members on how this project was created and why it got developed. What you see here in this picture is the results, I believe, of the 2015 event that we had, where we had, some people say a 500-year event, some people say a 750-year event. The particular culvert that's there, we found out was really only designed for a 2-year event. Obviously, that couldn't handle the event that we had that particular day. So there was this project is part of a 2015 Community Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program that's designed for communities that were impacted by the 2015 floods. There was quite a bit of paperwork that our project manager had to put together. There was a lot of back and forth with the General Land Office, that's who was administering these grant funds. And finally, on October 7th, we were allowed to move forward with the project. If you'll notice, October 7th of 2019 is when we started, and the deadline for this project is November 15th, 2021. We went back and forth with the General Land Office and told them that it's difficult to build a project in 2 years, especially when you've got engineering, environmental, and if you need to buy right-of-way or easements, and then to construct the project. And we went back and forth. We discussed, we argued, we tried to convince them, but we told them that it was difficult, but they wouldn't back down, so we're stuck with that date. The contract clearly says that we need to be completed by November 15th, 2021. So on October 7th, 2019, our project manager got busy, started putting the RFQs together, started getting our engineers lined up, and then we got our contractor on board to get this project started. And again, it's partly funded by the General Land Office, about $1.8 million, and we're responsible for about $1.6 million on this project. We did begin construction November 30th of 2020. One of the previous council meetings, I said that we awarded the contract to the contractor, and we said we're going to wait about 5 months and then start the project in January. During our discussions with the contractor, there was a concern that the box culverts that we needed for this project may not be built in time for us to start in January. And so he was also thinking that he needed more time to close this road. We did plan to close the road initially for about 6 days, and there's a penalty in the contract for for late completion, and there's an incentive for early completion. So they were concerned about the dilemma that we would have with getting these boxes in on time and being able to start quickly. And remember, our deadline is November, so that's starting in January doesn't give us a lot of time to take it all down, remove it and replace it, and then build it back up. One of the other things that we looked at when we were designing this project was right-of-way. I mentioned right-of-way earlier. Right-of-way acquisition or easement acquisition sometimes can take you well over a year. And as part of our design, we said we can't afford to buy any right-of-way at this point in time. We can't afford to be working with any of the landowners that they're difficult to work with that we knew of. So we said we've got to keep this project within the right-of-way that exists today. So that was a big challenge for us to do that, but we got it done on the design. So that's, and the reason I bring that up is because one of the reasons we wanted that additional right-of-way is we needed a bypass. We really needed a bypass for that structure so we could build it and let people go around it while we built the drainage structure there. So once we made the decision that we weren't going to get that right-of-way, that pretty well impacted our project by the fact that we don't have enough room here to put a bypass, much less do the construction that you see going on there. That's a picture that was taken late this afternoon. As you can see, they're still working until about 7:30, I understand. So they're really trying to get this thing opened up and as quickly as they can. The first phase does include just taking out the box culverts and putting in the new box culverts that are there. Like I said, we're not waiting for the precast box culverts. We're actually going to pour them in place, cast them in place. So that's our plan. We also have a utility that's in the way, so we know we're going to have to work around that utility. We couldn't get them to move it fast enough for us, so that's one of the reasons we decided to go with the cast-in-place box culverts. They're also working on the east end and the west end. They're going to be putting in temporary pavement so that when we complete this box culvert installation, we'll have our temporary 2 lanes in there so they can still continue working in there. On the Southside Wastewater Project, we're about 70% complete. We still have the 3 crews there. One's still working at the Post Road lift station. We have a second crew that's working near the TDCJ with their gravity line and a reclaimed water line that we're installing there. There's a third crew that's working on the bores on the north end of the project. There's 2 bores they're going to be putting in there, and one of them is about 50% complete, so they're doing pretty well in getting that project moving. On the wastewater treatment plant, I wanted to let you know that our project manager is here tonight in case you have any additional questions. Appreciate the fact that she's been doing a tremendous job on that project. As I've mentioned before, it's the biggest project we've ever had, $30 million project. That's huge for the city of Cobb. We're about 20% complete. We're still looking at the next pay estimate, so we'll be well over 20% at this point in time. They're continuing to work on pipe and rebar and concrete, and they're continuing to install duct banks and manholes throughout the site. We're still on our progress is still on schedule. That picture on the left is an overhead view of our headworks and the lift station that we have there on the site. That's about 45 feet deep. Very impressive site from overhead. And of course, those are the clarifiers that we're going to be adding to the plant to give us some more capacity for the treatment of the sewage that goes into our plant. Our Button Creek Interceptor, we were supposed to start on the 1st, and contractor asked if he could just start the next week. So that project's still getting ready to get started. Well, Site 4, we're hoping to start that in a couple of weeks so we can get that water tower rehabilitated. Old Post Road, we did meet with the county this past month, and we talked about quite a few things at the meeting. We do have monthly meetings we're going to be setting up with them to see where we are with our project. So our next meeting is on December 16th. TxDOT permitting, I'm waiting actually for the county to let me know what traffic control plan they want to use so I can let TxDOT know. So I'm kind of waiting on the county for that. We're still working on the right-of-way, trying to get that resolved and set in place. And last we heard, Hays County is still reviewing that interlocal agreement, so we can bring that to you after they've approved it. The Cedar Ranch Roundabout, I just want to let council know that this project was originally scheduled to start in the summer. Due to some issues they had with the GBRA water line, they got delayed and ended up having to build it starting November 4th, which was, that wasn't their original plan. So they did start, and of course now we've had our traffic issues with that, and they're estimating that they're going to have 3 months completion on that. Right now I'm saying, based on what their engineer told me, they said they're 40% complete. Council, if you remember at the last council meeting, I said we were 30% complete. I did ask them what's the difference. I would have thought they'd have been further along. Now you see they've got base down on the project, which is good. As soon as they get their base up to a certain elevation, they can start putting curb and gutter in and then bringing the rest of the base in and getting it paved. So they're moving along fairly well. I did talk to the engineer today. I said, why are we at 40 and not higher than that? And this is what I heard from the engineer. When he told me 30% last time, that was based on the fact that they would be able to close that bypass off for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I said, no, we can't, that's not an option. We have to keep that bypass open. So he said, well, if we could do that bypass and close it off, we could actually say we're at 60% complete. And I said, well, that's not an option for us to close that bypass off. If you close that bypass off, and their intent was to close it from December 7th to the end of the year, that's 3 weeks. And I said, all we need is one rate event, one flood event, and then we've got people trapped in the Button Creek Village Subdivision, Button Creek Reserve. We can't, that's not a chance we want to take. We can't do that. So today, Council, I'm saying that we're at 40% complete. Now, we're just a month into the project, so it's still looking good. Like I said, they got base down. That's good. So they've got the subgrade covered up, and hopefully they'll continue moving faster as long as this weather helps us out and doesn't just come down in a rain downpour or whatever. So we're looking good there. The Paramount subdivision, they do plan to close Opal Lane. We have a traffic control plan they've sent to us that's under review, and as soon as we approve that, or review it and approve it, then they say they can get started in about a week. Once they complete Opal Lane, then they plan to work on Roland Lane, and they're going to close off Roland Lane in the same manner also, and provide a detour. So that's going to be another detour that we have to work with that's coming up. And there's our city's website, if you need more information. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me start again with Lehman Road. Of course, it's looking great. I traveled by there last night. Right over there by the dog park. Hear me here. Sorry about that. Right over there by the dog park, there is the metal fencing and some wiring still there. Now, is that still part of the contract cleanup, or is that part of the city? It's. I noticed that there's some debris that's still out there.
I will follow up on that. I'll follow up on that. That tells me like it's materials from the contractor that he needs to pick up, so I'll follow up on that.
Yes, because there's still a metal fencing, and now, of course, with the time and the rain and everything, it's starting to fall over. So I didn't know if that's the city or if it's left over there.
I will follow up on that.
Thank you, sir. Now, going back to the Consetta Ranch slide, I saw that Roundabout has another road that goes on the backside. Is that road that we were talking about going to stay the same, or is it going to be closed off? See how it goes around? There's a new road, and then, of course, the Bunton, and I think that's where we're talking about Goforth, that access road. Are they going to be able to have two roads there? Are we going to keep that open? That one right there, where he had the arrow, that exactly
Okay,
that right there.
that's the bypass. That
The
should be coming out.
bypass.
Yes, sir. That's
So the bypass
that-
will stay the
No,
way
that's
it is.
coming out. That's coming out once they complete the roundabout. That's the one that they want to take out or close off so they can finish up the project. And that's when we're saying you have to leave that
Okay.
open. Right, until the roundabout's completed.
I
So
didn't
that
know-
will come out, yes.
Okay, so that will come out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So people would have to come up from the north and then make that little curve around and then go straight down?
That's
that way.
correct.
Okay. And we're at 40%, okay. Because yes, we're still having some major traffic issues over there on Daisy. We're still having some major issues, again, traffic going through Kensington Trails. I'm trying to keep in communication with our residents that live in that area. They've been very, very patient, but it gets frustrating for them, and I hear them, and I just wanted to, again, stress that if we can continue to get this project moved along with them, the contractors, as much as possible, because we really need to get this completed on time for the sake of all that. Did hear some emergency vehicles last night. I could hear them just coming down the road. I'm sure it was very clogged up because of the traffic on BB. So again, I just wanted to stress that, that area is very dangerous, and a lot of the residents out there are really voicing their concern on the traffic. So, but again, thank you for all your work, and I know that it's going to be completed as soon as possible. If we could just continue to stay on them. I
We will do
appreciate it
that.
very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor's Councilmember Rizzo for the record. Leon, just going back to Caseta Ranch, what I guess what I just want to point out is make sure that the contractors are working on the roadway. Once the roadway is completed, if they could maybe save the middle of the roundabout for the end. I know we're going to pour the concrete curb around it, but I think that's something we could work with, shutting down the lanes for a little while during the day when there's not as much traffic, when they're working on the middle of that roundabout. So something to keep in mind, but getting the lanes open is probably my number one concern, is getting that traffic flowing again. And then having some short closures during the day would be okay. I believe that would work out better for everybody.
We'll direct the contractor to do that. That's what we need to do, yes.
Thank you, Leon.
That's a good suggestion, Councilmember Rizzo. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Flores-Cap.
Okay, I have two questions. The Windy Hill Street and Drainage Project is, if I go to that website all the way at the end of the cityofkyle.com projects, will that give like a detail on what they're doing? Like exactly, I mean, I understand they're working on the drainage, but I would kind of like to know what that means. And I don't know if you want to tell me or if the City of Kyle project will tell me. And you can just email it to me, or we can have, a conference. I'm just kind of interested to know.
Samantha can correct me if I'm wrong, but she does have an explanation of the project. I did look at it today. It does have an explanation of what's entailed with the project. It gives you a little bit of information on it. It's 3 lanes, 47 feet wide, I think, information like that.
How about like what they're doing for the drainage?
No, we didn't really talk about the drainage on it, but wouldn't hurt to put that picture in there and show them this is why we're doing it.
I get why they're doing it. I'd like to know what they're doing. Like,
Oh,
what
okay,
exactly
okay,
are they
yeah.
doing? So, I mean, so
Okay,
you want to
okay.
be able to tell
I get it.
people, hey, this is why it's taking so long. And also, as far as the South Side wastewater improvement, is it possible to do a tour? We did a tour today at the expansion, and it was super enlightening, and it was an amazing experience, especially for environmental nerds like me. And so I was wondering if we could do that for the South Side as well.
I would be happy to give you a tour of that project. That project has had about every problem that I can think of from
That's
day
called
one.
experience. We're going to learn experience
Yes,
so we know what not to do.
I was here and started in 2013, and it was 90% design complete, and we hadn't even gotten the easements in right away. And we had about 20-something easements to acquire for that project. and then we moved the lift station, and I could go on and on. I could go on and on. Yes, be happy to.
I got 2 ears. I can listen all, or you can email me. Yeah, if I could set something up and we can go over there and look at it, I would be most grateful.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Leon.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up, the consent agenda items number 11 through 13.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 12 and 13. I'd like to pull 11, please.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded that we approve agenda items number 12 and 13. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 11, approve signing a letter of support for possible legislation to create a new funding mechanism for nature-based infrastructure through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Councilman Rizzo, you pulled this item.
I just wanted a quick explanation on this letter from Councilman Ellison. I found it interesting. I'd just like to have a quick explanation for the public, please.
So, Council, certainly apologize that the backup material was not added with the letter. I assume by Councilman Rizzo's comments that the rest of you all received the letter.
It's in the backup material now. I see it.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't in there all this weekend and up until earlier today. So I assume it wasn't in there because I didn't see it earlier today. So certainly my apologies that we did not get that added to that item. So I would like to bring forth our stormwater manager, Kathy Raker, to give us an update on this letter and what it's requesting of us.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ellison. This is Kathy Raker, Stormwater Management Plan Administrator for the record. I would like to go ahead and introduce Lisa and Anna. They had actually sent this letter to the City of Kyle asking if we would sign this letter of support. I think it's a very interesting concept. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them for a little bit better explanation of what signing the letter actually means.
Hi, thank you so much, Kathy. I'm Anna Farrell-Sherman. I'm Clean Water Associate with Environment Texas, which is a statewide nonprofit. And we've been working over the past couple months on kind of how to support nature-based infrastructure. Lisa, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Yes, hi, I'm Lisa Arsenault. I'm an environmental engineer in San Marcos, and I'm a very big fan of green infrastructure as it helps to support stormwater management, water quality, and flooding. So I'm working with Anna on this and very excited about bringing this to you all.
So the concept behind the letter that we presented to Kathy and you have before you now is to help finance nature-based infrastructure projects in Texas. So we know these projects are the best way to help communities deal with water pollution, with flooding, with drought, because they allow stormwater to slow down and soak into the soil. Things like the rain gardens and the permeable pavers that we were talking about earlier at the park are really good examples of this type of infrastructure. And what we've seen working throughout Texas is that funding can be a big issue when it comes to implementing nature-based infrastructure. And we're looking at ways to solve that problem. And in Iowa, they've created this really amazing program called the Sponsored Project Program through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund that has financed over 100 projects across the state at this point, including, most of those projects are in communities that are under 2,000 people. And it works by giving communities an interest rate break on clean water state revolving fund loans. So for example, the wastewater treatment project that we were talking about earlier on the call, applying for the sponsored project program with that wastewater treatment plant loan could have given the city $300,000 for green stormwater infrastructure like the rain gardens and the permeable pavers in the city park plan.
Actually,
So,
it would be even $3 million because of the
Thank
$30
you.
million wastewater treatment plant upgrade that y'all are talking about. So you could have qualified for a $3 million green infrastructure sponsored project. It could have added green infrastructure to your park system that you were talking about, and also enhanced downtown permeable pavers, walkways. But anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much for fixing my math. So we're hoping to kind of create support for this program in Texas and amongst all the different communities that are helping to support these types of green infrastructure features and want to provide them to their communities. So we're asking if the city of Kyle and council, and if you would be willing to help show your support for creating such a program here in Texas.
Thank you for the explanation. I wish we would have heard of you a couple of years ago before we started our wastewater facility, but thank you. I know how important it is to, keep the flooding issues down. And with more concrete going down, we do have more issues. But there also with the farming and the ranching, some of those issues were created, with trees being cut down, natural plants being removed, cattle introduced. So I know that we've created some of our own flooding issues, but to have this resource available and be able to mitigate some of that, it's going to be great. So thank you for reaching out to us, and I want to thank Councilman Ellison for bringing this letter to us forward, and thank y'all for all you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Rizzo, and thank you to our presenters coming in tonight and paying attention as well to the earlier parts of our meeting that had to do with some of these things. As the council is 7/9 of the TERS board, this is also something that we've talked about as well in those projects of embracing nature-based infrastructure, LID, different things. So with our public safety center that we were approved by the voters, as well as the parks in that area. And then just setting an example of what we want to see throughout the city with developers. And I certainly appreciate the rest of the council as far as our city meetings go, and then as well as the TERS board for embracing LID and other nature-based infrastructure. So this was in hopes of keeping in line with that, and then also stating our commitment with that as a city.
I would like to make a comment, please. As a fellow University of Iowa Hawkeye, nothing bad comes out of Iowa, including Iowa's and ideas. But my only question would be, why would we not go along with this? This is an excellent opportunity for the city with a good cause. And I would like to thank Mr. Ellison for bringing this to us. And again, my only question would be, why don't we do this? I mean, this is a great idea.
And I'd like to also point out to you all that the city of Kyle's in the Plum Creek watershed, and there's a Plum Creek watershed pollution-free watershed protection plan in place. So these sponsored projects really hinge on working within a watershed that has a watershed protection plan. So y'all are set with that. The Plum Creek watershed protection plan is already there, and just promoting green infrastructure. You guys have everything in place, and I can hear a lot of good intention coming out of the council members and the idea of the park system that you have there. There's so many little features that you could add to that park system that would make it more permeable and more allowing infiltration. And funding is always critical. So yeah, you're going to be doing more wastewater treatment plant upgrades, more wastewater treatment line replacements, all that. If it's funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and we had the sponsored project program in place, could continue to qualify you for about $100,000 for every $1 million spent. It won't cost any extra. They reduce the interest rate on the total loan so that you're paying back the same. You get 2 projects for the price of 1. So it's amazing and good for Iowa for doing this back in 2009. And Texas could really benefit, all over Texas, with this type of a program. So we're just trying to get as much support from municipalities, engineering firms, Hill Country Alliance, as many folks as we can to get on board with the sponsorship letter.
Thank you.
Mayor, motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo, that we approve item number 11. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Dex. All right. We have a few more items coming forward. Next up, agenda item number 14, considering possible action regarding entering into a design build contract with Cadence McShane for 104 South Burleson. It was a contract that we didn't quite have ready by agenda setting, so I know Mr. Sellers is recommending that we wait on this until the next one. Is that correct still, Scott?
Mayor, that's correct. This last week being a somewhat shorter week because of the holiday, we usually bring forward agreements for the agenda that are ready to go. In this case, we anticipated the improvements would be finalized with not only this, but a couple more on the agenda, and they were not in time. So we are recommending those be postponed to the 15th of December.
Okay. Is there any objection to skipping this one? Seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 15. We've already covered that in the public engagement process. Is there anyone that wants to bring this item back up to continue the discussion? All right, seeing none, we're going to skip it. Next up, agenda item number 16, second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 53, zoning in the city of Kyle, Texas, for the purpose of rezoning and approximately 2.3 acres of land from neighborhood commercial and a PUD to, and et cetera. Y'all word these in such a way that they're impossible to read out loud. Thank you. Mr. Koontz, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, my name is Howard Koontz. I'm the Community Development Director. And also for the record, I did not write that caption, so I was not the one that tongue-tied you this evening.
I don't believe you. You're a wizard at these things.
Nobody knows. So this is merely the second reading of the request by Sarah Files and her development team to reestablish boundaries of her PUD zoning located on Creekside Drive at the far north end of Creekside Trail, excuse me. I don't know, I am prepared to share my screen and show the boundaries again, but the Planning and Zoning Commission agreed with the staff recommendation to approve. They agreed 7-0. And at the city council vote, the last time this was brought up, it was voted to approve 6-1. So I can make myself available for any questions that might have arisen in the interim since the previous vote, or just stand aside right now.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Is there anyone who has any additional comments or questions arising from between first and second reading?
I do. Mr. Koontz, I was just wondering if anybody has informed, I think, is it Sarah Files that owns that? Or the developer, about FEMA's change of the 500 to 100-year floodplains?
I don't know that anyone from the city has, because right now this is a land use question. This is not specifically a development question. Right now, what we're talking about tonight is whether or not the land use proposed is the highest and best use for what should happen on that property. Basically, the way I usually explain it is that there are two questions that come along with entitlement. The first question is, can we? The second question is, how can we? Tonight's question is, can we? The applicant has come forward and asked permission of the council and asked permission of the city council to assign, using our police power, assign zoning that would allow for certain land uses to be undertaken on the property. If they are allowed to undertake those uses, later staff that is trained in whatever discipline that is required to look at the plans. We'll look at this in concert with her design professionals and figure out the way that it can be built in a code compliant fashion.
So can I clarify that that area is going to go from a 500 to a 100-year floodplain? Am I correct in saying that?
I would probably defer to the city engineer to tell me exactly what the boundaries are for 1 and 500-year floodplains along this property.
I think it's currently a 500, but if I'm not mistaken, FEMA is going to update those soon, and they will be changed to a 100.
I can add to this, Scott. You could probably add as well. So last year or 2 years ago is when we changed our regulations to require that all development in the city of Kyle be built at the 500-year floodplain or 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain. And I believe this property would, as a new project, would have to fall into that category.
Mayor and Council, Leon Barber,
correct,
city
Scott?
engineer. They will have to build above the 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain or the 500-year floodplain, whichever is the greater. Unless they can show us studies that show something different, but that's our current requirements in the ordinance that we have today.
And just to clarify, with Atlas 14, it basically changed the rainfall data. That's a general rule of thumb that the old 500 is the new 100. So.
Correct, but that would affect development in a different way as far as permitting?
Yes, they will have to build using that new requirement. In essence, what used to be the 500 is now the 100. They have to build it above 2 feet above that elevation, whatever that is.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, because essentially we are going to okay this for as under a 100-year floodplain, although it's currently labeled under 5. That'll eventually change in September, according to FEMA, to a 100-year floodplain. Is that correct?
That's the plan, but we don't have that yet. So what we have in place today is that we have to go with our current ordinance that we have, and if FEMA honors that 500-year, then that's what we'll be using at that point. And we're already using it today. I'll put it that way. Hopefully, I was clear on that.
You're clear. I just want to make sure. I mean, this change is not going to be so far in the future that we shouldn't be thinking about it right now.
Maybe I can add to that. So FEMA changes its floodplain maps based on basically FEMA's timing. We as a city change our floodplain maps as per either studies, drafts, latest engineering. We have better, more current engineering and maps for this area, so we follow our maps until FEMA basically can catch up. So when Leon says we're already following the new Atlas 14 guidelines, we are doing that per our flood drainage study.
We're ahead of FEMA right now.
Okay. So what you're telling me right now is it zoned 500 years by the city, or is it zoned 100 years by the city?
We're using the FEMA floodplain maps, but we also have another study called the GBRA study. If the GBRA study shows the boundaries further outside what FEMA shows, the way our ordinance is written, we use GBRA's study. So we're going to use the one that's the most strict. Most not restrictive, but
strict.
Whatever one's the greatest, we're going to use the greatest. So if GBRA flood study was done in that area and it shows that floodplain's further out, that's what we're going to use. If the FEMA map showing that the 500 is further out, we're going to use the FEMA 500.
Thank you.
This is Councilman Tobias. Again, my two big concerns about this area is, again, the any kind of development going out there. We're investing a lot of funds and money in the Plum Creek Trail out there. And it really would concern me, any kind of development out there is going to have a lot of runoff in that creek. I understand that they're looking at building an easement or water easement out there to help it. But then again, you know, it's water. Water's got to go somewhere, even when it floods over. The other part was the roads, that road on there on Creekside. Was coming back from the coast on Sunday, actually Saturday. It was raining, as you know. So we thought we'd just go drive down there and see what it looked like. And the potholes and the water runoff was a big concern as well. And I know we had talked about it. Well, if if that road was to be repaired or to be restructured, it had to be through another CIP project, correct, Howard? So that would come sometime later on if the development goes through. So that's the big infrastructure issue that I have, is that I want to make sure that when we have developers coming in, that we do have adequate roads already in place for the residents to be able to use and utilize. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Can I say something else? Sorry. Sorry.
Well, before you do, I'm going to give the floor to anyone else who wishes to comment first before we go back. Mr. Rizzo, Mr. Ellison, you have anything to say? Councilmember Coach.
Yeah, Mayor.
I'd like for Councilmember Tobias's comments to be addressed.
Okay, I have a response to two of those questions, and then staff as well. The road comment in particular is something that I've been concerned about for a while, because I've also gone out there and looked at that road. So my understanding is that there was a plan in place to improve the road condition heading out that way. And that was so, but tangentially to that is the real answer to the question is that this project is already entitled for the development to proceed. What they are requesting now, this was something we discussed and negotiated. It's been a year or more since the vote was taken. They are seeking to amend the project. I don't know that the project is going to necessarily create more stormwater runoff, because the runoff is a function of engineering and retention, and those are standards that are set. So it goes back to Howard's original comment that zoning questions and flooding questions are not always it seems like when you were talking about building, you want to talk about the flooding, but the flooding conversation is one where we're dealing with flooding issues through elevated requirements, which are very stringent. We followed and went with San Marcos back then to raise the elevation, which means that they can't get nearly as close to flood waters anywhere in the city as before. But so my recommendation would be to approach this from a land use standpoint. And then the road conversation is also one where you don't necessarily want to approve land use until you have a good sense of what you're going to do with those roads. And my understanding was that they are going to be repairing those roads. Howard or Leon, anybody, if you want to add to those comments. Also, the flow does not flow into the neighborhood. The flow flows backwards. So, and similar to all the other neighborhoods that are close along the Plum Creek Reservoir Trail.
I think your point is correct. I think it did mirror what I had said earlier, that there's a difference between a land use question and then the technical specifications questions of how to make this product come out of the ground. Tonight we're just looking at the more broad question about whether or not we should amend the pre-existing boundaries of the already entitled project commensurate with the application. The idea of the improvement to the roads, we've talked about adequate public facilities with the applicant way back at the time of their the expectation of their putting this project together the first time. And they looked at the water availability, which was substandard for what they were looking at. They looked at the roadway condition, which was substandard for what they were looking at. It is incumbent upon the municipality to examine their utilities, including the roadway systems, and put those, how do I want to phrase this? Put the roads that are in the worst condition, or the ones that are in the most need of improvement based upon changing conditions, put those higher up on the CIP, put them on their plans for improvements. Sometimes they need to be rebuilt, sometimes they need to be widened, sometimes new ones need to be created that would bypass underperforming roads. It's a constantly reviewed and changed plan based on a needs assessment that should be done periodically, pretty often. Part of this will be done in concert with the developer. We've had those conversations in the past about their expectation for contributing to the rebuilding Creekside Trail based upon the but-for argument of the rebuild of Creekside Trail is necessary because of their project that they're putting in. We do have some fees that are already built into our development program, adjacent lane mile fees. And those are fees that are predicated on trips per day. So it's scalable. If you build a project that's very small and you can only expect a couple of cars to come and go per day, then the fee is smaller. If you build a larger product and you could expect many more trips per day to come onto and off the product, then the fee scales up. It's a lot bigger.
Well, Howard, let me jump in real quick and just ask, and this may not be the question because I know the answer you're giving is the general framework for how road repairs are done, but is the city and the developer preparing to, as this project comes to life, upgrade and or repave that road? Not necessarily reconstruct it, but it needs work. It just does.
I haven't seen those plans yet. I do remember the conversations being had at the time this zoning coming through the first time. I'd have to go back through the records and find out what it was that was agreed upon at that time. But no, the short answer is that I haven't seen an update to that as a function of this application now.
If I can jump in, this Scott Sellers for the record. The construction of Creekside Trail was a pretty hot topic at the time for the developer, and I believe ultimately is what led to the development to stagnate for the years it has. Because it stagnated, the city, as we looked at our road construction program, we determined roads that could be built as a reconstruction project versus roads that could be overlaid, which would be more of a minor spot repair where needed because they didn't carry the volume of traffic as more major roadways. And those minor repairs would be what we would put our new chip sealer onto. Creekside Trail is one of those roads that is currently identified as a chip sealed road. That's something that could be done as early as next year. Now, with that said, that chip seal decision was made with the understanding that this project had stalled. What we would do with the applicant as they put this back on the front burner is look at the amount of traffic that is estimated to be on that road. And if it's too much for a chip seal, then we need to go back to making sure that a full reconstruction of the road is part of the project. So that's something that we'll do as we move forward.
Thank you, Scott. Councilmember Rizzo, for the record. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just wanted to say, from looking at what we had approved ahead of time to what they're asking for now, I noticed that it puts the homes further away from the creek. So I think that, and then we've got the flood mitigation sitting up there just behind it. So I think this plan actually is better than the original plan. So I want to make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 16.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Ellison that we approve the item. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, please.
Councilmember Flores Scheel, go ahead.
I just have two concerns. One of them is something that you touched base on, which was the runoff and how it's not going to affect the homes. However, being in and around that wastewater plant today, I realized that water is going to go into the same Plum Creek as our wastewater. And I wonder, will that affect the Plum Creek wastewater and like our area and how much we can put in there? And then another concern of mine is this whole plane, which will be built first, the housing or the road, is really not a game that I think the Kyle residents want to play. And I think as a representative of District 2, I've talked to people and they are okay through the growth. It's the infrastructure that needs to catch up that they really worry about. If we can provide a good infrastructure for our residents to minimize any kind of stressful life that they have, even just driving home, I think they would be less argumentative, I guess, to growing. And so in looking out for them, it's my hope that if we're going to build more homes, that our infrastructure will already be laid out. Idealistically, I think that's going to be healthy for us. Healthier, I should say, for us. So again, I just had the Plum Creek and then just the traffic, the roads down that road that we're going to be expanding on.
Well, I agree with your comment about the roads and the timing between, but unfortunately the challenge is, how do you pay for a road without raising taxes if the people who are going to be paying the fees and the taxes that where the road is needed are denied? And so there's this balancing act between approving development and also making plans for infrastructure and having those kind of occur simultaneously. So if you build a new 5-mile road, and say you got to build this road before any development happens, then someone has to pay for that road. And then that means that it's the current taxpayers that don't necessarily need the road. So there's this chicken and egg timing situation. And really, I think what the balance we've tried to strike at council is when we know that there are areas that we're allowing to develop, that we must at that same time be committing to the CIP projects necessary to elevate and uplift that infrastructure concurrently with the zoning. So it's either yes, yes, or no, no, is kind of the way that works, but for the development, we wouldn't be prioritizing Creekside Trail the way that I think we would if we did approve it. If that makes sense. So my comment goes to yours and to Councilmember Tobias's, which is to say that we need to make sure that staff is bringing forward a solution here to run concurrently, whether that's resurfacing or what. But this, they're already entitled to build, and I do agree with Councilmember Rizzo that the changes they're seeking to make are fine. It's just we need a plan for this as they're moving forward, and so hopefully staff will commit to bringing that plan forward now that they're getting ready to pursue this project more in earnest. Scott, can you commit to that?
Yeah, maybe I need to ask a question to James or Howard. With the existing entitlements and this action being requested, do we have the ability to continue to negotiate the roadway beyond the action tonight, or do we need to postpone this action?
And the problem is you don't tie road contracts with developers on the basis of reconfiguring their use. They were entitled in the past, and we went through this all in the past to make sure that that we were going to have a plan in place. So at second reading, there's no developer agreement coming forward anytime soon. So it's really, they're going to be paying in their adjacent lane mile fees. It's a large project on the back of that road, and we need to make sure that we're committing to use those funds that they're providing to upgrade that road, as well as taking a kind of a long-term view to make sure that we're investing enough to upgrade the road the right way. And that's really a staff question. They're going to be paying their fees, and they're going to have to improve a stretch of that road no matter what, is what we discussed a year or two ago. There's a piece of it that they're going to have to do, but it's the rest that we're going to have to commit to building. Otherwise, we really are doing a disservice to the folks that live on that street. If we're committing to fix their road, then I think this project should move forward. But if there's not a plan in place or a commitment to, it's really Harper, like you said, and I don't know if Harper's available, but from an internal perspective, will we be able to put that in our internal streets maintenance and streets construction CIP over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, or as they're getting ready to build their project?
Mayor, this is Harper. Harper Wilder, Public Works Director, for the record. As Mr. Sellers said in the past, that was always or was discussed to be a chip seal roadway. I understand the debates going on back and forth. That roadway is important as another factor, because I talked with Mr. Sellers and Mr. Earp about that punching through at some point across the creek and tying it in over there to Gristmill or Bunton, something of that nature, to allow more connectivity on that east side versus just having Lehman Road and Heidenreich. as far as doing the project, if council feels that that needs to move forward at a faster rate, I'd be happy to review that roadway. More significantly, we haven't as of right now, because of what we stated earlier, that was going to be a chip seal roadway. But working it in with Center Street and Old Stagecoach, Bunton Lane, some of those that we're going to be doing, here pretty quick, that would be something that y'all would decide.
I think chip seal is fine. It's just whether or not it's going to be in the project, because this road in particular, it's not a through road. This was the point that we made, when we approved the zoning the first time, that particular stretch terminates at a develop, which means there's no new development coming. So this development is either going to provide enough for us to get this in the CIP and put it in the list and commit to getting it done, or it's not. And if the answer is it's not, we don't need to be developing back there if we're not going to build, if we're not going to fix this road. I think chip seal is fine because you guys are getting better and better at that. It just needs to be smooth. It needs to be where the traffic can flow without all of the issues. I mean, I know it's a nice road up, and then I guess it comes down a little bit, but you've shown that you can handle projects like this one in particular. This is not sidewalks and street lights and all that kind of stuff. It's just a main resurfacing and probably slightly widening for that little stretch of road.
Yes, sir. And like I said, if it's the council's decision to move that up, we can definitely do that. It's not a matter of can we do it or not do it. We can do it. The priority level with Center Street and Stagecoach being up there towards the top right now from past discussions, as well as Bunton Lane from Lehman to the PC substation, and the time period that it's going to take to get those two before we can get around to Creekside is what I would be concerned with.
May I ask a question? I'm not really familiar with chip seal. I'm not sure what that is or what that means. Is that going to be compatible with land that's susceptible to flooding?
So the chip seal, ma'am, is a common. It's a common used roadway improvement. It's where like a emulsion type oil is put down on the road, and then a light gravel placed over the top of it, for layman's terms. Placed over the top of it. It's done in the county quite often. City of Boston uses it on many of their streets. It's not that smooth, and when I say smooth, I mean if you ran your hand over it, it's not that smooth, brand new pavement type when you construct a new roadway where you're using hot mix asphalt. But it is a good, more cost-effective form for roadways that don't have the high traffic volumes.
Okay, I can.
But will it affect the drain? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can respect saving some money for the taxpayers. However, the two words that you used to describe this common used roadway were oil and gravel. And I don't know if that's a good idea to put that in an area that has water on it as far as safety goes.
Well, once that cures, it seals, and then it's protected. It's the same with your asphalt. When you have your oil, let's say you asphalt a roadway, then you're spraying oil down on top of your base. In a similar fashion, it's the final layer on the top that's different. Instead of a hot mix, which is like a it's rolling out something that's a smooth sheet blanket that goes out of asphalt. This is more of a gravel that you place on top that then becomes your final surface.
Out of curiosity, can we get a price? You're saying there's a difference in the price, but I was just wondering if we can get just like a price difference so we can figure out if it's because it's not, you said it's not a very long strip of road. So is it worth it to go with a cheaper route if it's not going to be like, a couple miles long? What are we really saving here, I guess is my question.
I can probably jump in here. So first of all, Mayor and Council, Scott Sellers for the record. I want to apologize. I actually was under the assumption when we talked about entitlements for this project that there was a DA from the past that had been approved. That is not the case, and I just confirmed that. So that changes my former opinion. If it's just straight entitled by zoning, then yeah, we're relying on the adjacent lane mile fee for these improvements. Our commitment as a city is to do oil and chip seal based on the average daily traffic. The cost for chip sealing is in the tens of thousands of dollars for this roadway. And that's, again, we are purchasing an emulsifier or a chip spreading machine to do that. The cost of rebuilding this roadway to east side spec, if you will, is 2 feet of base of excavation, the entirety of the roadway, and then potentially grid stabilized or lime stabilized base with different class rock material. Plus, we're looking at different edgeway to hold all that together, and that cost is in typically the millions of dollars, even for the stretch of roadway. Now, at the end of the day, as Harper mentioned, our transportation master plan shows a bridge over the creek. There will be ultimate improvements that continued the connectivity from south to north through there. I believe that at the time that the city wants to make that a true CIP with the bridge is probably the time to go in and do the full depth build and construction of the roadway. That is it's not even on our CIP radar. It's on the transportation master plan, but it's not on the radar because it's not a necessary component for the flow of traffic today. It can be added here in the future, but again, we're talking the millions of dollars as compared to in the tens of thousands for oil and chip or chip seal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 5-2. Next up, agenda item number 17. That one needs to be postponed. 18 also, as well as 19. Is that correct? 17, 18, and 19, all three need to be postponed?
Mayor, 17 and 18, we can just postpone to the next meeting. 19 will need action to postpone it to date certain, which is the next meeting.
Okay, so if there are no objections, I'd like to bring up agenda item number 19, second reading and ordinance amending Chapter 53, zoning the City of Kyle, Texas, for the purpose of rezoning 128.58 acres of land from agriculture to R-1-3, 30.27 acres of land to residential townhome R-1-T, and approximately 20.37 acres of land to community commercial for property located off East Post Road, just north of Quail Ridge Subdivision. Some exciting improvements and commitments being made on this, but it's just we didn't get the document in time for complete review by council. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion to postpone to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. It's been motioned by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Ellison. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 20, consider impossible action on a resolution of the City of Kyle, Texas, accepting an amended and restated service and assessment plan for the Six Creeks Public Improvement District, etc. Mr. Snyder, good to see you.
You as well. Mayor Council, John Snyder with P3 Works. If it's all right, I'm going to introduce both item 20 and 21 together. So what you have before you on item 20 is the amended and restated service and assessment plan. So earlier in the summer, we came forward with an SAP update This is basically rolling in improvement area number 2, as well as the second bond issuance for improvement area number 1, and updating the document to reflect that. So really all we're doing is moving forward into the second phase of development, levying the assessments. This is the preliminary SAP, so it'll come back again. If this is approved, it'll come back again on December 15th. And that would be the final approval where you'd actually levy the assessments. The second item is authorizing the distribution of the plum. I think Trip Davenport with FMS Bonds is there in person tonight. He can speak if there's any questions on the plum, but that is for improvement area number 2, so that he can go out and market the bonds and then ultimately bring the final pricing to council for consideration on December 15th. And with that, I'll answer any questions if there's any details you want to get into.
Thank you, John. We do have Trip here. He's online, though, this time. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Snyder or Mr. Davenport? Right, I'd like to motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Ellison, that we approve agenda item number 20. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 21, consider impossible action on a resolution approving the form and authorizing the distribution of a preliminary limited offering memorandum for the city of Kyle, Texas, Special Assessment Revenue Bond, Series 2020, Six Creeks Public Improvement District Improvement Number 2 project. Anything to add, Mr. Snyder? You already briefed it.
I think that's it, unless there's any questions for Trip on the marketing of the bonds.
Does anybody have any questions for Trip? Motions?
Mayor, motion to approve as written.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Tobias, that we approve agenda item number 21. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, city manager's report.
Mayor Council Scott Sellers for the record. Quick report. We have the next mass food distribution event at Lehman High School on December 12th. We've talked about this each meeting. Volunteers are still needed. It's open to all, and we are so grateful for all the volunteers we've had so far and everyone's help. So please make that morning from 8 to 11. We still have the COVID testing van from Curative set up in front of the Hayes Performing Arts Center. That will be daily from 9 to 5 through December. We are in the midst of early voting for the mayoral runoff. That will continue through Thursday from 8 to 5, and then Friday from 6 to 6. And then on election day, the hours are from 7 to 7 at our 3 locations: Kyle City Hall, Kyle Fire Station, and Hayes County Precinct 2. More information at cityofkyle.com/election. And then there is a TERS 2 board meeting scheduled December 17th at 7 p.m. This is a virtual meeting. Please mark your calendars if you haven't already done so. And we are still accepting applicants for the Plan and Zoning Commission. And I believe there may be a few more boards and commissions vacancies that will be advertising as well online, but please follow that link, cokvolunteer.applicantpool.com to apply. And just finally, the West R-150 Naming Committee met, or what is it, tomorrow at 6 p.m. And for full schedule, you can follow that link as well in the presentation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
9:30, not too bad.
Mayor, motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. I don't know who dissented. I want to call it out, though, to make it get in the record.
Rizzo.
Councilmember Rizzo dissenting there. So I believe we're supposed to go to City Hall for the lighting issue, video stuff. So anyway, see y'all there.
The lighting issue.
Sorry.